All right, Walt in the house. Walt McKinley, welcome to the show, Bear Fruit Show. Glad you are here.
Man, what's going on, brother? Man, I'm hyped up just watching that intro video. Let's go. So,
Let's
I'm
go.
I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on the show. And from the Great American Speak Off, we just became fast friends. So it's great to just continue to connect and partner together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And instantly, Walt was somebody that stood out to me when I went and did, the Great American Speak Off. And he, there's kindred spirits there as far as just like, the way we want to help people and love people and just all of that. So, and he's got a powerful story. So we're definitely going to dive into that. But I'm going to do a little bit of an intro on Walt. He's a amazing speaker, author, trainer. He's got an amazing story. The 4 keys to living an extraordinary life. Using stories and tangible approaches with audiences to create a mentality of purpose and success. He's multi-dimensional speaker. He's been on multiple podcasts. Actually, speaking of podcasts, they have just they just are launched, right? If I understand it right,
Yes.
launched a podcast. So we're super excited that. But he already wrote a book. So it's like, man, he's doing some amazing things. But I definitely want to check out his website. I left it in the links, and the 4 keys to living an extraordinary life are in there. So you want to make sure you check those out. But Walt, tell me about your podcast. Like, I want to know, we're just diving into that real quick, but tell me a little bit about your podcast, what it is, and what your goals are and how you're helping people there.
I love it. Thanks, brother. Yeah, it's crazy the evolution from being in the military, going to corporate America, leaving corporate America to really step into my life's purpose, and how that life's purpose has even brought the partnership of my wife and I even closer after 23 years of marriage. And, legacy is a huge word for me. You see the bottom, your history does not define your legacy. That is literally my life quote. And being a warrior and not having that victim mentality is another huge piece of what drives me forward, especially based upon my childhood. So my wife and I created the Legacy Warrior podcast, where we're both on them. So you get the masculine and feminine energy and perspectives to really bring out the best version for all the listeners that are already listening into the show, and to help break the generational cycles and elevate family legacies for all time. And that ripple effect that happens long after we're gone that we don't even know about because of what we started today. So it's been this beautiful journey. The feedback's been tremendous. And
that's awesome.
It's been great seeing my wife do it too, and her step into her own power in that way.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I love you sharing that piece. Like, you guys are doing it together as a team. Tell me a little bit about the dynamics there. Like, how did you guys decide to do it together versus you just trying to, do it on your own?
Well, I'm sure everybody in the audience can tell I'm an introvert at this point. So, it's funny because she's the yin to my yang, and she's been such a supporter of my career from the military to what I'm doing today. And when I decided to go ahead and start putting the time and effort into building this podcast, I wanted her to be a part of it, but she would think to herself, well, who's going to really listen to little old me? And I said, well, baby, you got 44 years of life experience. You've been a mother. You've been a veteran wife, with me going on deployments. Like, you're such an advisor to your friends. And that's what we're going to be talking about. How do you really live an extraordinary life? How do you step into your own power, feel empowered by your story? And that feminine energy that she brings, the feminine perspective that I don't have the same perspective in, just creates this huge, super cool, Kyle, dynamic of just the output that comes out when both of us are doing it together. And look, I've been together 26 years and married 23. We're cutting up, we're laughing, we're giving each other a hard time. It's really just a conversation between her, I, and that listener in those moments. And it's elevated our marriage in a really short period of time from being in an extraordinary place to just epic. And I love supporting her in the journey of her stepping into her power, like she's always done for me. So
that's awesome. Dude. That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. My wife and I are definitely gonna have to listen to that, and I'm gonna have to convince her to get on here with me.
Yes.
And see how that goes
with us.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun. My wife rips me all the time, but usually it's in front of close friends. So we'll see how that goes in public.
Right. Gotta keep it fun.
No, in a fun way. Of course. Yeah. She just, like you said, she makes like you said about your wife, she makes you better. She's your yin to your
Hmm.
yang and
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. What I loved about what you said was that she supported you in everything you did, whether it was military, corporate America, into your, your speaking career and all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
I love that. I love that. So what do you feel like the biggest challenge in the podcast has been? Like, what's been the one of the hardest things about it?
Just the technical piece. I'm not
Yeah.
a technical guy. I love using my voice to help change people's lives. She's great at that piece too. And then we go to like make some clips and do some stuff. But here's the thing, I got to embrace that part of this journey. And I think the
Mm,
hardest things are so worth it when you work through it. Ultimately, that's going to be easy. But the first time, second time, third time you're doing something, it's just not. And
yeah.
so, do you embrace the challenge? Do you really learn how to do it yourself? Ultimately, I'll probably hire somebody to do it. But right now, we need to learn how to just do this baseline technical aspect of creating the social media stuff for it in order to
Hmm.
get it to where we want to be. Because for us, it's about impacting other people. It's not a vanity project, it's about impacting. And if we
Yeah.
can just impact the one because we created and worked through the struggle of doing a video clip, then we've lived in our purpose for that day. And so that's where we kind of keep our focus at and keep perspective.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think, I heard this the other day that, most podcasts don't get past like, I think like 90% of them don't make past like 10 episodes, right? So being able to, hit that certain threshold, you're already in the top 10%. And it's
Right.
just like, there is a lot of like, there's the technology to it. There's the, just
Mhm.
like you said, cutting up and creating clips and drawing people to that.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing, but like going through that journey and kind of like the school of hard knocks is kind of like I think it's a good thing to be able to do that because then you can help other people do it along the journey. But Walt, tell me about. I want to hear. We're going to break down your story a little bit, but tell me
Yeah.
about your story. Give me an overview, and then we'll kind of dive into different pieces of it because you have an amazing story.
Perfect. Yeah. So I moved 14 times in this first 16 years of my life, being beat, tortured, and abused by every single adult that I came into contact with. I had really horrific childhood experience around trauma. My
Mm,
father, my stepfather, my stepmother, foster parents, it didn't matter who I was with. I just really lived a life where I survived minute to minute until I was about 15 and a half. And my life hero, my aunt, took a chance on really loving a broken teenager to help me become the man that I am today. And so all the lady listeners will love it because I would say a woman helped me become the man I am today,
yeah,
and
come on.
get me to a point where I can meet my wife,
Yeah,
accept the love, right, give the love in a healthy manner, and then continue to grow my professional career through her support and her love and her guidance, and become the father I wanted to be and create the family that I envisioned when I stopped surviving day to day and I started having hopes and dreams and thriving when I moved in with my aunt.
yeah. So when you were that first section of your life, when were you adopted? Was it you foster homes? Was it just the people who were supposed to love you the most really hurt you the most?
It was really all of it. So when I say I moved 14 times in 16 years, that's what I could physically remember. And we, as early as 2 years old, we were removed from my mother's house because my stepfather was beating us, and
Wow.
we had black and blue bruises, and the babysitter saw it. And that was the first kind of move. And then my mom moved away from him, and then my dad would literally come kidnap us in the middle of the day from school and then drop us off on a doorstep 4 months later because he didn't want to deal with us kids anymore. And all the while there's emotional, there's physical abuse, there's domestic violence happening, there's torture for me being locked in basements and chained to beds, and really
Mm,
beaten to the brink of almost losing my sanity, but really
yeah.
along the way showing me that my spirit was truly unbreakable
What
because
was
I
that?
am
What
who I
was
am
that
because of
like?
this.
What was that like when you were like as such a young kid interacting with like other kids like
Mhm.
at school and all that kind of stuff? Was that hard? Do you remember any of it? Like I know you're pretty young, but
Yeah.
going through that type of trauma in the midst of like having peers and having like creating friendships and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that was probably the biggest challenge. You're always the new kid. And
Yeah.
so you're being judged as the new kid. Kids are mean, and but I would always find my way. I found a way to be true to myself, but still a chameleon in who I was to create those friendships. And then,
Hmm.
second to that, once I created the friendships, my escape was outside. The last thing I ever wanted. Now I'm 46 years old, so you're expected to be outside when you were a kid, but the last thing I wanted to do was be inside. So for me, outside with my friends were some of
That
the
was kind of your
happiest moments of
escape.
my childhood because it was my escape.
Hmm. Hmm. So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It was like, hey, this is like my place to get away where I don't have to
Mhm.
face really reality, um, and all that kind of stuff. So as you continue to move and go through kind of the abuse, you said you met your aunt and she was basically like your angel.
Yeah.
What was, you know, what was the thing that really like kind of she literally pulled you out of that situation? Is that right?
Mhm. She
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she really came to me at the time when I was on the precipice of just either killing myself or going the wrong way in life and ending up in prison. I was starting to get in trouble. I was starting to hang out. I was being the statistic. I'd almost
Yeah.
taken my life at 13 years old. At
Wow.
about 15 and a couple months in there, she started trying to hatch a plan with me. Now, mind you, this is 30 years ago, right? Child Protective Services didn't just remove you from a home back then, like they will do more so today. You had to really prove that your the abuse was happening. And so she called Child Protective Services. She would come pick me up random on purpose, knowing that I was in this situation and get me out of it. And Child Protective Services told her, well, okay, well, we're going to send somebody to do a health and welfare check because,
Hmm.
and if he hits him again, tell Walt to run, but we can't do anything until it happens again. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, if they do a
Jesus.
health and welfare check, my dad can be charming. He's going to fool him. And then I'm dead because he told me if I
Yeah.
ever became a traitor, he'd kill me.
Wow.
And you know, it took 2 days, thank God. And that day I
Yeah.
ran from my father. And I say this a lot. And I told you this story at the Great American Speak Off. I didn't run from my dad that day. I actually ran into the rest of my life. It was still to this day the single most pivotal moment of my life because I chose me in the moment, even though I was terrified of what the
Yeah.
outcome could have been once I ran. Did I live with foster parents who threw me in closets and chained me to beds again? Do I live with, are they going to put me back with my dad and I'm done? Are they going to find my mom I
Hmm.
hadn't seen in 5 years at that point, and I'm going to go live with my foster father who used to lock me in basements and terrify me and throw me against walls? Or am I going to get to go live with my aunt who I
Yeah.
knew would protect and love me? And so she was that ray of light in that dark cave that I was living in. And that ray of light really gave me hope to continue to move my life forward.
Yeah. And that's crazy because, a lot of people don't realize like how serious, and this is heavy stuff, right? But it's
Mhm.
real. And I that's what I love about it is that
Yeah.
you've been healed and you're able to walk through and you're now your sole purpose in life is to help other people kind
Mhm.
of come out of that trauma, come out of that
Yeah.
brokenness. And everybody's got some type of trauma
That's right.
that they haven't dealt with. And a lot of that trauma can hold them back or hinder other current relationships, and they don't even realize it because they haven't actually
Mhm.
dealt with the pain. They've kind of just covered it up. And so, but people don't realize like how serious, suicide is in such a young age. The statistics is wild, and it's,
Mhm.
I think it's like every hour, 6 people take their life. And by the end of the day, 10 or 11, those people are kids. And so it's just,
Mhm.
it's you were that. And so, for kids, I work with youth, and there's youth that follow me, and I've done that probably over the last decade. What do you have to say to the youth and maybe listening, that are, or maybe parents of youth that are maybe like they know that their kid is maybe struggling with suicidal thoughts or all of that? What do you have to say? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is it's okay not to be okay. I
Yeah.
think we're taught from a really young age to, especially men, you don't talk about it, don't act like a girl. Who told you could talk about your feelings? All the things that suppress that pain and that quiet desperation that so many people in our society live in every day, from kids to adults. And
Yeah.
in order to start to create internal freedom and a safe environment internally where you can thrive, you really do have to start to create that external environment. And so talk to your most trusted advisor, talk to a therapist. If you're under 18 and you know that you're struggling and you need some help, talk to your parents. If you can't talk to them, talk to a counselor, talk to a friend's parents. Find one trusted advisor you can begin to speak your truth to, because nothing is worse than the pain and the shame of hiding a secret and not
Mm,
telling it. That just poisons who you are as a human being, and it just limits your life potential. The first
yeah.
time you speak your truth, it's the difference between drowning your whole life and taking that first gasping breath of air where you release this pain and you can fill that place of pain in with love. So just find
What do
somebody.
you mean by like speaking that truth? I want to kind of,
Mhm.
what does that mean? You said it, you could either drown in it or it could be like your first grasp of life. Do you mean just like
Mhm.
sharing how you're feeling or your thoughts and all, all of that? Is that what you mean?
That's exactly what I mean. From the littlest
Okay.
thing. Look, Kyle, I didn't just share my whole story. I've written a book now about it, but I didn't
Sure.
just share my whole story when I was 15 and a half or 16 after I testified against my father in court and moved in with my aunt and she got custody. And it was like a little piece here and a little piece there and a little piece here. And what I found is that over time, sharing those little pieces started to add up to sharing big pieces of my story. And every time I shared one more of those pieces that were just crushing me on the inside, every time I shared one of those stories, I released some of that pain and I felt happier. And when I realized the correlation between the two, it became so much easier to share the next story, to
Mm,
peel the onion back and do the healing that I needed to do along the way.
yeah. And so how did the healing happen, right? Was it just through sharing, or was it, you kind of mentioned, through time as well? What was there something that happened in your life where you're like, man, I am kind of becoming, I'm healed, from my past.
Yeah, I think I don't think I'll ever fully be healed. I think there's things even now that still trigger me, but my ability to respond to the trigger versus react to the trigger is a testament to the amount of healing I've done. And what's wild, Kyle, is when I left corporate America, my wife, she had been begging me for a decade to write this book, right? And she goes,
Yeah.
then she asked me one day as I'm writing it, and she goes, "How did you actually heal?" And I thought, I don't know that I've ever really contemplated like how I did it. What were the moments of epiphany? And that's
Mhm.
why I created
Mhm.
the 4 keys to living an extraordinary life. So it's 4 different steps you can take on a ladder that gets you from that pit of despair into your abundance and success. And we can talk about that now if you want, but
Yeah,
really it's
no, let's
walking
dive
through
into
that.
that. I think it's a great time. Look, tell me, because I want to know. I think there's people out there,
Yeah.
there's listeners out there, there's there's people, there's kids, like there's
Yeah.
there who have trauma or know somebody who has trauma. So I want to be able to, I think let's give them some nuggets to actually help them get through that process, or trigger, or start to go through that process, because I think that's what we're here for, right? So
That is to
let's
help.
let's get, yeah.
And you know what's cool is I got advised by a lot of people, don't put this in my memoir because it's more of a self-help thing. And I said, no, when somebody gets to this point in my memoir and they're thinking, I can't believe this dude made it. If he can make
Yeah.
it, I can make it too. I wanted them to
Yep.
flip the page and think, crap, this is how he actually did it. And so the
Yeah.
first thing I talked about was speaking your truth. So we already talked about that a little bit. The
So
second,
yep,
this
sharing it.
speak your truth is the number one key. The second key comes in 2 parts. The first part is acceptance for what happened to you. I see so
Mhm.
many people in life, they push it away or they discount what happened to them, or they say, well, it wasn't as bad as yours. They compare it to somebody else's trauma. But the
Mm.
reality is, your trauma and your lived experience is really yours. And because it's yours, you got to come to acceptance for what happened. It is or it isn't, period. There's
Yep.
no, it's black or it's white, right?
Yeah.
And the second piece of that is when you can accept what happened to you for what it was. I had all those horrific things we talked about happen to me. I was made to drink scalding water. I was locked in basements. I was chained to beds. I was beaten my whole childhood. I couldn't change that. I had to
Mhm.
accept that it happened. And once I did, it allowed me to start to acknowledge the feelings that came with those experiences, the pain, the hurt. As a man looking back and being vulnerable enough to say, there's a hurt little boy inside of me still that I need to heal, because if I don't, I'm going to continue the generational cycles. And
Yeah.
that
Let's
speak
talk
your
about
truth
that
and
real
go ahead.
quick. The generational cycles. What does that mean for people who may not know what that means? Like, I've heard it phrased as like generational curses, stuff like that, like, being kind of passed down. And some people may believe that or not believe that, but what did you mean by generational cycles?
Yeah, I think our lived experiences and the things that happen for us when you're healed in life. But for a long time, I thought they happened to me, right? And
Mm,
those things that was happening to me in my mentality caused me to stay in a victim mentality. It caused me to re-victimize myself as an adult every single time I thought about the pain I'd been through in my childhood because I hadn't done the healing work yet. And because of that, I would lash out at people. I would get angry.
mm.
So those same things that happened to me in my childhood, I started to perpetuate and do in my adult life. And like I
So
was really
you
protective
found
women.
yourself anger, you found yourself
Mhm,
like, you know, maybe like verbally being angry,
mhm.
stuff like that. Like you found it overflowing and not you like you just found that you didn't know where it came from, kind of like it was just it would pop up in certain scenarios.
You're triggered. So in that
Yeah,
trigger
okay,
moment of
triggered. Yeah.
whatever. So for me, I was really protective of women and kids because I couldn't protect myself as a kid. So
Mm,
for me, I was really protective of women and kids because I felt like I could protect them. But if you
mm,
were a man and you yelled at me or you popped off at the mouth or you thought you were going to intimidate me, I had all that happen my whole childhood. So I would react by trying to hurt you, like
mm.
physically harm you significantly. And
Yeah.
I knew I
Did a
couldn't,
lot
I
of
was
that
going
stuff start to? Did a lot of that happen in the military,
Um, uh,
or
some
just?
of it,
Yeah, yeah.
and it was just this evolution of healing. But I also knew I wanted to change my legacy, and that's why I say your history does not define your
Not
legacy.
define your
My
legacy. That's right.
history says what I should have been by being a statistic, but my legacy is not defined by my experience, my experiences. My legacy is because of my experiences now because I've healed. So I think
Mm,
generational legacy 78% of the time people in families, because we don't talk about these things, we're not vulnerable, we don't speak about them. People, the generational cycles continued 78 per times by another family member. Could be your parent, could be an uncle, could be an aunt, could be a cousin. Somebody will hurt somebody else in that family and continue that trauma because we
because
don't
they
talk
were.
about it and we don't heal. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And hurt people hurt others, and that'll
Yeah.
take us to the next key, right? So we talked about speak your truth, accept your trauma for what it is, acknowledge the emotion behind it. The third key is forgiveness. And Kyle, this one was
Mm,
hard for me, bro. Like I got to tell
yeah.
you, this one was hard for me. What
I
I
couldn't even
really,
imagine, well, like what that,
hmm
I mean, I've had people in my life that I've had to forgive, but
yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, tell me.
So here's
That's
what helped me a lot. I realized in my own journey, hurt people hurt people. It
mm,
doesn't make what they did okay. It doesn't condone their actions. Hurt people hurt people. That's the reality. All of my abusers were abused themselves, right?
yeah.
Generational cycles, and they pushed their generational cycle on me. I also knew that if I didn't forgive, there was a possibility of me repeating those same cycles. And I absolutely didn't want to do that. I realized
Mm,
that as an adult, every time I thought about my stepfather, I got angry, I got upset. Well, then now I'm not being a great husband. I'm not being a great dad. I'm not being a great coworker. I'm not being a great friend to the people who deserve my love the most because now I'm in my head and I'm victimizing myself again, even though I'm not actually being hurt in the moment. And I realized in that moment, forgiveness was about me. Forgiveness was about me healing. Forgiveness was about me feeling better. And once I realized that, I was able to really, because I had accepted it previously, right? I was able to just let that pain go, forgive them. And it doesn't mean this is what I wanted people to really take away. It doesn't mean I called them up and I'm like, hey, you know what? Like, it's okay what happened. I forgive you. You can go live your life happy now. The forgiveness was never about them. When I was triggered and upset, they were still living their worst life because they didn't
yeah.
have the courage to face their trauma. So all it did was affect me and those people I love the most around me by hanging on to that pain.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So, I truly believe like forgiveness in forgiveness, there's freedom. And so as you began to forgive, these people in your life, you found that you gained the freedom, not
Yeah.
necessarily, it wasn't for them. It was for you.
Because the only thing you can control in this life is your
That's right.
emotions and the way you
Yeah.
respond or react. So I couldn't control where they were going to take their life. Them saying sorry to me would have meant nothing. My father said sorry to me at one point in my life. I'm sorry. I know it wasn't as bad as you kids thought it was, but I'm sorry if I ever hurt you. If you need to hit me, you can. And I thought, I forgave you a long
Oh
time
wow.
ago so that I can
Yeah.
move on. But I'll never forget
Hmm.
what you did. But I forgave
Yeah.
you for me so that I can live in peace and internal freedom and raise my capacity to show up as the man my wife and kids and friends needed around me, because I'm living the best version of who I am, because I'm not hanging on to the pain anymore. And I'll tell you like a quick 30-second story. My
Yeah. Tell me.
stepfather, who threw me in basements. So I saw him. I hadn't seen my mom in almost a decade. I was in the Navy with my wife, girlfriend at the time, now wife. We flew home, first time coming to meet the fam, right? I wanted to see my sisters. So we fly back. We're in my mom's house. I'd never been in this house of hers. And there's a guy talking to my little sister out by the carport. He's outside the house and she's just in. I walk to get water, grab the water. I turn around to walk away. And I'm like, "What's up, dude?" Thinking it's my mom's new boyfriend because I had never met him, right? "What's up, dude?" And he goes, "Hey, Walt." And I took 2 steps. And this is the most angry I've ever been in my entire life. I turned red. My wife's like, "You turned red and white and red and white," because these emotions. And I realized it was my stepfather who threw me in the basement when I was a little boy. But now I'm a 19-year-old, very angry man, or
Yeah.
20-year-old,
Yeah.
very angry man.
Yeah.
And here's the cool thing. I hadn't forgave at that point. I had a lot of healing I needed to do. 12 years later, I see him at my little sister's wedding.
Hmm.
I was able to walk up and shake his hand and say, "Congratulations." And then you know what I did? I went back over to my wife and my kids and I danced with them. I danced with my sisters. I danced with my mother, and I just had fun. And that's what
Yeah.
forgiveness does. 12
Mm.
years before that, I wouldn't have had the freedom, and I would have been staring at them and wanting to hurt them and wanting to go and it ruined my sister's wedding potentially.
Yeah.
Healing, forgiveness allows you to live in freedom, where when you see somebody, when you think about something, it doesn't disrupt who you are as a human being in that moment at all. I just
Yeah.
have fun.
Yeah. And I think there's everybody in their life, probably has somebody they could forgive, whether
Mhm.
it was the person who cut them off in the morning on the way to work, or, from 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, the abuse that they,
Mhm.
they experienced as a kid. And I truly believe that forgiveness is freedom. Just this last weekend,
Yes.
we were in Florida, and we were at church, Go Journey Church, amazing, in West Palm.
Awesome.
And the pastor was talking about repentance and forgiveness. And I had
Mm.
realized that for me, there were some areas in my life where I was kind of quick to respond to my wife Megan in some areas, and I wasn't very very nice. And I was trying to figure out like what was that, and
Mm.
there was some unforgiveness that was there towards some just little things that they had said that she had said that I needed to forgive her on. And so when I did that, there was just this freedom, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was there. I didn't really realize there until I was in the moment, till I was like, hey, what in my life is do I need to, who do I in my life? And the person was standing right next to me and I didn't even know it. So
Mhm.
the people, and it could be little things, and that forgiveness is just freedom, right? So constantly learning how to forgive, because I think we're always going to have to, it's a I don't know. It's an action that you just got to learn how to do all the time, because you don't want, because unforgiveness leads to bitterness, right?
Yeah.
And that bitterness, I believe, will slowly kill people. It's like a drip of just death that people have in their life, and they need to turn on the living water of forgiveness and let it just wash over them.
Well, and the
So
thing is, like,
that's
in the book, The Body Keeps Score, your body stores trauma via
mm,
inflammation, and other things that happen later on in life. And so, even physically changing who you
yeah,
are as a human being, much less emotionally, all of it works together. And I think I want to talk about the fourth key real quick because it's super
yeah,
important, and that's exposing your superpowers. And what I realized
mm,
in my life is everything has happened for me, not to me. Even the most tragic, hardest things that I ever went through. I am who I
mm,
am because of those experiences. And because of those experiences, I'm super empathetic. I'm a freaking hard worker, man. Like changing generational legacy started with me doing the work for me and professionally and all the things I did. I'm compassionate. Um, all the all empathetic. I'm full of grit. I'm full of resilience. All of those things, brother. All
Mm,
of those things become superpowers for how I move through this world. And I wouldn't have them without my experiences. My ability to see somebody, create a safe space to build that trust comes so quickly because people know that I've lived experiences that they can relate to. And because of that, it's unlocked these superpowers. And if you look at those 4 keys, they spell safe. My wife picked up on this. I didn't even realize this when I was writing the book. They
oh, so
spell safe.
safe at SAFE.
SAFE. And
Wow.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first piece to get to self actualization is food, shelter, and water. You just need that to not die, right? Like that's straight up survival.
That's yeah,
The
survival.
next key that you need in this self actualization is to feel safe.
Mm,
But you can have an environment externally that is safe for you. But if you don't create a safe internal environment by continually working through these steps, you're never going to be happy. It's going to always feel out of reach, no matter what kind of things you can buy or what your external environment looks like. That's why we have people who have taken their life in our society at such a huge clip, and people who we look at, celebrities that seem like they have everything, but they don't feel safe on the inside. They don't feel happy on the inside. They don't have the freedom on the inside. And
yeah.
that's what's waiting for every person listening to this. If they
Mm,
choose, this is a big one. If they choose
choice.
to embrace the fear of the unknown, I tell my story, you tell your story to give them the belief that they can do it. And they run straight through that fear. They knock their trauma down one last time and they start looking out the windshield of life. And it's a difference between being at a stoplight or being on the HOV lane in the freeway when everybody else is stopped next to you in traffic. It's a beautiful feeling. And it's you ever drive past people on the HOV and everybody's stopped and you're smiling. You don't even know why you're smiling. You're just like, man, oh, look at the people all over there. I can't believe it. That's what it feels like when you heal from this trauma and expose your
Mm,
superpowers, because then you will use them to help the next person who's waiting for your story, who don't need mine,
mm,
who don't need Kyle's, who's waiting for yours. And you're going to save their life because you had the courage to start
to
working
share.
on yours today.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's right. By the power of people's testimonies, like lives will be changed and saved.
Amen.
And so I think that, you willing to write the book, right? You
Yeah.
willing to start that process. You willing to start the podcast. You willing to start sharing, hard things
Yeah.
in life. Like nobody wants to share those things. It's like, hey, the name of the book, right? The monster, is it the monster in my house?
Monsters
It's
in
like
my house. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
monsters in my house. Like you have people's got things in the closet. People got things like
Yeah.
skeletons in the closet. They're hiding, and it's like, hey, or just not sharing about. And when you share these things and you begin to go through those 4 steps of healing, that's when other lives start to change. And I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. But
What?
that's when you feel
So
empowered by your story, Kyle. When you feel
yeah.
empowered by your story, you could use your story for good instead of
All right.
running
Well.
from the emotions that people run from when they think about their story. It's time to switch the mindset. You don't need to fix
Mm,
anything. The only thing you need to do is switch your mindset to feeling like a victim and things happen to you, to saying, why did these things happen for me? And how can I use them? And then the power comes in that story through the healing process. So great.
yeah. No, I agree. Well, I want to touch base real quick on what you said about your superpower.
Yeah.
What is that for you? And then how do people discover what their superpower is? Do they have to go through all these other steps to discover it, or what does that look like?
I, I think my superpower when it comes to other people is making people feel seen and safe.
Mm,
And like I've had so many women tell me things that they're like, I've never told anybody that. I just feel safe when I'm around you. I
yeah.
feel seen. And I'm like, because I understand what it's like not to feel seen. And I understand what
Mm,
it's like not to feel safe. So as I healed, it became a superpower of mine because I had perspective of what it was like not to have it. And here's the cool thing. You do have to go through the steps. You got to make the choice to go all in. You're never going to really unlock your full capacity in life by running from the things that hurt you. The things that hurt you the challenges in life, the pain that gets turned into purpose when you're willing to face it, know what
Mm,
happened for you, and become the person you're supposed to be because of those things. That's when you unlock your superpowers. And it's not one, like you're going to unlock so many
yeah,
superpowers that you
yeah.
can use to help anybody in any circumstance. It's great.
Yeah, but in your pain, in people's I believe in people's pain and their greatest fears, when you get through that is the gifts, is the gifting, right? Like people
Hmm.
feeling safe to share things with you. It's a gift that you created or have, but you got it through handling
That's
and
right.
dealing and working through the pain. So people's gifts, like your greatest gifts is sometimes in your greatest pains. And I think you said your power is in your greatest pain, right? And so
Yeah.
I think people discovering that and being able to work through those things to help other people, and even ultimately, like, get them right, get their life right, so they can live the legacy and define, start to
Yeah.
change the legacy of their life, but also to help other people do the same thing. So I love
Well,
the mission that you're on, man. It's beautiful.
I want to add one thing. Your pain can either be your anchor or it could be your rocket fuel. You choose. You
Yeah,
have the choice how you're going to use that pain.
yeah,
And so
that's right.
today is a day, if you're listening to this and you're feeling a certain kind of way listening to this and your soul is
Yeah.
stirred, man, today is a day for you to switch that mind, realize it happened for you. What can I take from it? What lessons can I learn? And let me put this rocket fuel in the ship that I'm sitting on, that I've been waiting to take off in. And let me just go into this next level of where my life's supposed to be headed as I step into my own purpose.
Mm, that's good. That's really good. I love it. So Walt, tell me, so if, like you said, some people may be out there feeling like, hey, I want to know how to deal with this pain and this hurt that's on the inside. How can people find you, or how can people, get access to those 4 steps, or just, follow you and get more information? Like, how do people do that?
Easiest way is just go to waltmckinley.com. All my
Okay.
social media is attached there. There's a complimentary gift that I give anybody that goes to my site. You just got to sign up for it. And it's the 4 keys with some journal
Okay.
questions in there to generate some emotion to help you continue to try to take that first step that you want to take today.
Okay, awesome. I just threw that in the link for those of you who may want it, but it's
Perfect.
just waltmckinley.com, and that has all your information, all
Yeah.
your stuff there. And Walt, if somebody's watching this, they're like, man, this guy would be perfect for, a seminar I'm putting on or some type of event. Is that the same place they can go to and figure out how to get a hold of you?
There's a speaker page on there. There's speaker one sheets, and then just shoot me an email from there. I'll connect with you and we'll figure out if I'm a good fit for your audience, and making sure
Yeah.
that our partnership really does change lives in the way that you need them changed if you're looking for a speaker.
Nice. I love that. I love that. And that's on your page. So you got a dope website. I love it. I'm about to ask you
Thanks.
who did it for you. It looks good, man. So,
I'll give you all that
um
information when we get off here.
cool. Cool, cool, cool. Oh shoot, my camera just went off. I'll jump over here.
All right.
Cool. Well, hey, I appreciate it, Walt. Walt McKinley, amazing speaker, amazing story, and you're changing lives out there. Your power is in your pain, and your history does not define your legacy. And
Mm.
you're changing lives with your story, and I love it, man. So, thanks for being vulnerable and just willing to step out, because so many people need this. People need to hear your story. So it's awesome.
Well, thank you for having me on, brother. I genuinely appreciate it. And I don't take it lightly when people trust me with their audience, to come on here and be able to deliver something that's impactful for the people who need it. And I'm
Yeah,
just blessed to know you, and happy that we created that quick friendship that's probably going to last a lifetime. So thank you so
that's
much for
right.
having me on here.
That's right, Walt. All right, awesome. We will see you guys on the next time on the Bear Fruit Show. I had a mentor once tell me, go find somebody with fruit on the tree and learn from them, and let their ceiling be your floor. And that is what everybody on this show has done. And excited to get people on this show to hear their stories, because they're changing lives just like Walt. So give us a follow. Make sure you go to Walt's page, give him a like on all his social media, all that stuff. So amazing man right here. So appreciate it.